Hello everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope we're doing well, and today I'll be doing a review of the film Free Guy, which is a newer film, technically, coming out in 2021. I know! Guess what? I have a movie blog, eventually, or allegedly. That's the word I'm looking for there. But if you want to hear my thoughts about this movie, go ahead and smash that like button. Line up that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the channel with that bell notification turned on. That way you know every time a new video or live stream goes live on the channel. So last night, the wife and I were able to settle down and watch Free Guy, thanks to the magic of VPN technology, as this film is available in places like the UK, etc., on Disney Plus. And so, again, because of contracts and all these other things, it can only be available in certain regions, on certain areas. But because of VPN technology, we're able to access these types of things. And so, Free Guy, 2021 American science fiction action comedy, directed by Shawn Levy. By the way, Shawn Levy, as we were looking into his filmography after the movie, because that's something that me and my wife do, she loves to dive into to find out more about the production and more about, some behind-the-scenes fun stuff. Like, that's her thing. She, I think, really cares less about movies and more about the stories behind the films. That's why whenever we finish a film, she's always like, are there special features? Are there special features? Can we dive into them? Which is one of the many reasons why I love her. But it was interesting actually going into Shawn Levy, who directed the film and was one of the producers on the film, because he actually got his start back in like Nickelodeon days with like early, I believe it was Nickelodeon. I always get it confused, Nickelodeon and Disney with the early shows, but I'm pretty sure that these were all Nickelodeon. But The Secret World of Alex Mack, was Nickelodeon. So he got his start directing 6 episodes of The Secret World of Alex Mack. Anyone from my generation knows and remembers that show. He also did The Journey of Alan Strange, a few episodes. He actually did even 90s version of Lassie. He did, more so to me, he did 5 episodes of Animorphs. He did the entire series of the famous Jet Jackson, which is awesome. He also directed episodes of So Weird, In a Heartbeat. He also did the Jet Jackson movie, which, again, I just find pretty incredible. He also did 79 episodes of Last Man Standing, which I think is something worth note, saying that this was a show that starred Tim Allen and got a lot of hatred from certain groups of people. He also did things like Stranger Things as well. He did several episodes of Stranger Things more recently. So he's got a pretty interesting pedigree, and I actually like, especially his television career. In his film career, he's, kind of had some hits and misses here. He did the whole Night of the Museum series, which I thought was pretty cool. He also did Real Steel, which I was, personally, I actually liked a lot as far as a movie is concerned. But Free Guy, let's get back to this movie. Overall, I was a fan of the film. I found myself thoroughly enjoying the movie. Now, it is not a completely original film. In fact, even in this article from Wikipedia, even points out saying that it very much is inspired. And the one film that I know for me, before looking at this article, the one that definitely pointed out or kind of called out to me was Ready Player One. This very much reminded me a lot of Ready Player One because it deals with, people playing as characters, right, being avatars in this digital universe. And so obviously there's going to be connections there with Ready Player One. But then also these other ones make a lot of sense too, right? There's these connections also to The Truman Show, right, with, Free Guy specifically being an NPC character and not knowing he's an NPC character, and finding out that the world he's living in is not really the world that he expected, right? That he's just an algorithm, that he is just basically the first AI to ever be created artificially in this way. So I thought that was pretty interesting. You also have references here to Matrix, which, again, I guess I kind of see, not nearly as much, I think. Grand Theft Auto for sure, just because, again, of the video game references, and Fortnite, because there's, of course, some Fortnite references in the movie. So, yeah, in general, though, I actually found myself enjoying this a lot, and a lot of it came down, I think, because of Ryan Reynolds. I think anyone who is a fan of Ryan Reynolds and likes his brand of comedy, likes him as a leading guy, will thoroughly enjoy this movie, because he is really the heart and the soul of the film. And I think that he does a great job in just selling the character. Not only is he playing his own character, but later on in the film, he even plays an alternate character who might be one of my favorites, just known as the character as the character's name is just known as Dude. So once you get to the character of Dude, just know that that was probably one of my favorite parts of the film, just because of the way that they present this incomplete character is how they describe it. I'll just leave it at that. So as I said, really the main reason why this is a great film for me, as far as the enjoyment, is because of Ryan Reynolds. What is interesting is that the story itself is kind of a mixed bag. There's some parts that I thought were really good. some parts that were not so good. There are definitely some elements of, I guess you could say there's some elements of wokeness in the story as well. I know that a lot of people that follow my channel care about that kind of stuff. There's some references here and there, but it's almost like they're throwaway lines, right? It's almost like they're throwaway references. And I feel like it might even be somewhat inspired by shows, or rather in the same vein as shows like Last Man Standing, where there's references to stuff like that, but it's almost like it's a throwaway joke more so than it is a serious commentary. And I thought that was a really clever way of handling it. And again, that's just the way that it came across, at least to me. Some people might perceive it differently, but that is how I took it. So I took it as almost as like they were mocking certain aspects of wokeness. And so anytime that there's going to be mocking of that, of course, I'm always going to be very much in support of that. So story-wise, bit of a mixed bag because they're going in between the free, what's called like Free City, right? So they're going in between the world of Free City and then the real world where the villain is Taika Waititi. By the way, Taika Waititi, please continue to play villains, because since you have the personality of a villain in real life, it's a lot easier to hate you as a villain in a movie because you play it so well, because hey, it's kind of, art imitating life, or life imitating art in a lot of ways. So please continue to do that. But the story going back and forth, I thought that the actual world was a lot more interesting. I would have loved for them to spend a little bit more time in the actual Free City and less time in the real world. Though there, I think, are some pretty cool parallels that they make, especially when it comes to relationships and how the characters are built. You have a performance here from Joe Keery, and I always just like seeing Joe Keery in different roles because I think he's very underrated in his performance. Right? He's just known as, oh, it's the guy from Stranger Things with the nice hair. And it's like, yeah, he can do more though, and I would really like to see him actually get a career in indie films. I think he would actually have a very successful career in indie films because I think he has these acting chops that are not really being put to through their paces, that I think that he really could do really well here. But I think he does a pretty good job in this film. You also have performance here by Jodie Marie Comer, who I don't really know a whole lot as far as her roles previously, but she also gives a pretty solid performance in the film. You have a comedic performance from Little Ray Howery. I don't really know him all that much either, but I thought he was pretty funny playing the best friend of the character played by Ryan Reynolds, so another NPC character. And I really just, again, like the dynamic of the different actors working together, but the story, to me, really going back and forth, definitely had some issues. Also, you can very much tell towards the end of the film, more so, about when Disney took over for this film. So again, this film started before Disney bought 20th Century Fox, and so there's a clear moment at the very end where you realize, okay, Disney was like, hey, let's add some stuff to this film because now we can, because this otherwise would have been copyright infringement, but now that we own it, it's totally fine. And there's some references in certain ways to Avengers and a couple things. I won't go into too much detail because I just think the moment itself is really hilarious. Like, my wife and I were just laughing so much because of just one, for me, how unexpected it was, because even though obviously I know of the behind the scenes of Disney buying 20th Century Fox, I thought the film had been probably mostly completed by the time that deal went through, so that they wouldn't have been able to add scenes, and to add scenes specifically in a way where the story seems like it would have already kind of played out, and it wouldn't have been able to add it as seamlessly as it actually was added to the story. And so that was a really funny, cool moment, I thought. Kind of giving some references there. There's some fun cameos in this film as well. There's really great cameos, and I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to spoil anything because it is still relatively new, coming out this year, and really just now becoming available on streaming platforms across at least the Europe and again, I don't think it'll ever come to Disney Plus, at least not in the foreseeable future, because of various deals that it had. But I think in the United States, it actually might potentially come to HBO Max. But I'll have to, of course, wait and see on that one if that is indeed the case. But overall, this film, a lot of fun. Everything else as far as the film's concerned, whether it's the cinematography, which is fine, the music, which is fine as well, editing, the pacing of the film is fine. It doesn't feel overly long. It doesn't really ever get boring by any point. It's just a fun movie, right? It's just a fun film that you get to turn your brain off for, right? The story is nothing incredibly original in certain ways, right? Obviously, it's got inspiration from other films that have happened beforehand, but I think it is original enough in its concept where you'll find some enjoyment in here. Of course, you expect this from me. There are some elements of the story where the CGI is just not very good, but my wife made a good point of it and said, you know what? This is one of the few occasions, like, because there was a scene that happened and the CGI for it was terrible. And immediately my wife was like, you know what? Normally this kind of stuff would bother me, but you know what? Because it's taking place in a video game world, it actually kind of makes sense that the CGI wouldn't be as good. And I was like, hey, that's actually a pretty fair point to say, because they do cut back between the real world and also the video game world. And when you're in the real world viewing the video game world, all the characters actually look like video games. And so to have, right, the effects not be nearly as clean does at least have some excuse built into the story of the film. But I'm going to bring it up anyway, that obviously there could have been some better CGI usage even in the video game world itself, because when they're in the video game world as video game characters, everything looks like real life. And I think that the better way to be able to handle that more efficiently or more effectively would be to try and make it look as realistic as possible, which they did. But again, there were sometimes when I think the CGI kind of ultimately failed. But overall, film, I thought, was a lot of fun. As far as the rewatchability of the movie, I think that there's definitely some elements that are a lot of fun. I think that it would be fun to see some behind the scenes of this movie, because I imagine Ryan Reynolds did a lot of improv and did a lot of funny outtakes, things like that. And I think that would be really, really cool to see, at least from that perspective. And I would say overall in general that if you have access to a VPN, Disney Plus or other means, obviously there's other means of accessing this film, especially now that there is a clean copy available online, which again, that's going to be up to you. I would say that this is definitely a good time. You could have a lot of fun with this movie. I'm going to give this film a B+. I thought that it was a lot of fun. There's a lot of comedy throughout the movie. Not nearly as funny as my wife thinks it was. Like, my wife loved it. So again, we are very different personalities in certain respects. So she loved the film. She thought it was fantastic. She's also a Ryan Reynolds fangirl, so that probably has something to do with it. But it is genuinely funny as well, which is why, you know, I'm going in the B+ territory for this movie. But what are your thoughts? Have you ever seen Free Guy? Do you plan to watch Free Guy? Obviously, it does come from a very evil corporation as far as, you know, being owned by Disney. And let's not forget that Disney works with Chinese communists and gives money to them, which means that they can fund their concentration camps, which, of course, treat people in modern day times as slaves. But hey, gonna keep on bringing that up every time I bring up these major studios, because I think it's important for us to have these discussions. But what are your thoughts about the film? Let me know in the comment section below. Like this video, smash that like button, light up that fire button. If you're watching on Odyssey, you're all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my Patreon Subscribe Star and Locals members: Andrew Hoyle, Animation Commentator; Brandon, Brian P., Christopher Bowman, Don Bruno de la Mancha, Father Christopher Miller, hail to you, Father; Father Damian Cook, Garrett Searles, Harold Francis, Inflamed Wood, Jacob Juice, Jeffrey Toone, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Gomer Kyle, 79, Laura, the Modern Major General's Story, Mike Jackson, Dion, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mondo Spieler, Mr. Peabody, On to June, Orange Hat Reviews, Out of Step with Reality, Priscilla Hall, Rosetta Allen, Stan Andrian, Teresa Martin, Theodore Benden, Tina Bojan, and Tina B., the Empress of the Universe. Thank you for being my Patreon members. And a huge shout out to my Subscribe Star members: The R, Fast Reaction, Nosferatu Gatsu, John B., Perpetual Punster, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., Dean Heist / the new number 2, J-Rod the Beer Guru, and ZK-Man. Thank you very much for supporting me over on Subscribestar. And to my one Locals member, Robert Barnes, thank you for supporting me over on Locals. And if you want a name shouted out, or your name rather, shouted out at the end of every single live stream and video, please consider joining on one of those platforms, either Patreon, Subscribestar, or Locals. Links to that can be found in the description. Look at that top link especially. It's called the Willow link there. It'll give you links to all the social media platforms and also ways to support the channel. If you want to be an Army of Asgard level or above member, you can get access to giveaways that I do every single month. I give away 4Ks, Blu-rays, all kinds of stuff. It is a lot of fun. Also, if you join at the Keeper of the Bifrost level, you get access to all of that. Plus, you get access to an exclusive podcast that I do with John the Flick Pick Flickager Harkinger. We have a lot of fun. We do that once or twice a month. And if you join at the Chosen of Valhalla level, you get all of that. Plus, in your first month, you get a t-shirt of your choice and send anywhere in the world. And also, you get to be featured on the channel once a month on the Chosen of Valhalla live stream, where we get to hang out and have a good time. So anyway, if any of that sounds good, check out that link in the top of the video. As I mentioned, you guys are amazing and beautiful people. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.